So, basically that weekend there were two white-initiated hate crimes that happened in the town. One was 3 black kids were held up at gunpoint by a white guy, a white adult, at a convenience store with a sawed-off shotgun, right, of his own. The kids wrestled the gun away from him. The police did come, but they filed charges against the black kids for assault. Wow. And for theft of property over $500 for taking the gun.
Oh wow! Oh wow! That's crazy.
Then there was a party, and most of the parties are all white. It's an 85% white town, so a high school party where some black kids were invited. Same black kids. Also part of the same group of black kids who hung the nooses. Like they're definitely the kids in town who have been speaking out a little bit. You know, they end up going to the party and getting pretty severely beaten up. You know, have to get stitches and this sort of thing. At that party, the whole town knows there's chaos. There's just been a fire. They say, you know, we shouldn't send the kids back to school. They end up sending the kids back to school. Fairly predictably, there's a fight on Monday at lunch between black kids and the white kids, and one white kid ends up getting beat up sort of for the first time. So he's punched and then kicked. You know, he actually, I guess from testimony that's out there now from the DA's side, so the worst possible case, like he was unconscious for, you know, a period of time that's unknown. They came, he was conscious before he got into the ambulance, he was conscious when he arrived at the hospital. He was treated for 3 hours in the emergency room. They did MRI scans and all sorts of things to make sure he didn't have any head injuries, and like he had a pretty nasty black eye, so they gave him medication for that. They gave him pain medication, but they let him go within 3 hours. Like he entered the hospital with a self-reported pain level of 7 and left with one of 4. He went to the junior ring ceremony that night where you get your class rings. Mm-hmm. He didn't stay for the reception, but like he went out to a public thing that evening. Mm-hmm. 6 black kids were arrested and charged with conspiracy to commit second-degree murder and attempted second-degree murder, and expelled from school and put in jail. Most of them have been in jail from varying amounts of time up through just a couple weeks ago. One of them is still in jail now. That's Michael Bell. He was recently convicted about a month ago of a lesser charge of aggravated assault, which is still a felony, so at least it doesn't carry 85 years like he was facing before, but it does carry 22. His sentencing was supposed to be last Tuesday, July 31st, so actually we had quite a movement of people that showed up. I mean, there were 300 people from all across the country who came because it was supposed to have been his sentencing. I mean, it had been postponed, but you know, the people in Jena have been organizing and protesting for months. I mean, since their kids were taken to jail on their own. They tried to get some help from the NAACP, formed their own NAACP chapter by getting 100 members in the town to join so that they could get some name and power behind themselves. They've been working closely with us at the ACLU and with another organization, Friends of Justice, and really just not giving up, doing regular protests. I mean, we've done dozens of protests now in front of the courthouse. You know, I mean, we've done a really good job, I think, at getting the word out about the story. There have been a number of articles and documentaries and those sorts of things that are being done.
How would anyone be able to get any information on?
Sure. We have a website that we're still sort of working on, but it will be at freethejena6.org. Other things you can do, we've officially partnered with Color of Change, which it's one of the guys who used to work for MoveOn.org, left after Katrina to found, you know, sort of a Move On style social activist website that focused on issues of people of color. He was very active here after Katrina, so he's been really helpful. Like he's the one that got the petitions together for the DA and the governor, and I mean, we've gotten 45,000 signatures, so that's colorofchange.org. You'll see a Jena button there. You can sign up for things there. If you want to email the families, you can send something to Jena6Defense, and that's 6 the number, so JENA 6 Defense @gmail.com, and the parents will get back to you at some point and put you on a list so that you can be sure to be involved. We will need people who can travel to Louisiana to come and protest for some of the court hearings. We will need people in general if they have help, legal resources. There's a There's an outside group called the Jena 6 LaSalle Parish Legal Working Group that's sanctioned by the parents, which is basically a group of lawyers and law firms and law schools, including Howard and all sorts of bigger name, law schools and organizations that are now working to try and help, the lawyers in the defense of these kids in the appeal of Michael's conviction.
I want the people to really be able to understand the character of these gentlemen. They're not just no typical,
kids?
they're not. I mean, these are college kids, correct?
These kids are high school kids. These are high school kids. They were between 16 and 18 when they were arrested.
Wow.
Mostly on the lower end of that. Several of them have had to be tried as adults in order to be tried at this, to be tried at this level. Several of them have turned into, gotten out of the minor stage while they've been in prison, so turned into adults legally now while they've been in prison. But at the time of the incident, a lot of them were juveniles. Like I was saying, there is still one unnamed juvenile involved. His house recently burnt down, which is unsettling, but they actually think maybe unrelated. The church where we usually meet has had its sign knocked over recently. Like, that was really when people first started coming from the outside to our meetings. Like, I mean, I guess I'm always from the outside, but I'd been there from the outside for months, so I was a regular character. And there were two or three of us, another guy from the ACLU, and then Alan Bean from Friends of Justice, and we lived a lot there and whatnot. So, but it was the first real time. Actually, it was mostly Nation of Islam folks. There were like 60 Nation of Islam folks that showed up from just all over the South because they had heard about the community meeting, and like an hour after everyone left, somebody ran over the church sign, right, where in front of where we meet. I don't know, they arrested two white guys who say it was like a drunk driving kind of thing, and they backed over it, and so that's going to court. I mean, there's a lot at stake here. I think people are ready to fight, And like, of course now no picture comes up. So yeah, we had like 300 people in that march. There's my friend Katrina. This is Kasepla. She's the mother of one of the kids. All the petitions.
So y'all see this, right? If anyone's out there watching this and there's something that you can do to help the situation, please, contact any of these email addresses or websites that was actually spoke a little while on the tape. So
yeah, Jena6defense@gmail.com. We have groups all over. We have blogging groups. There are groups. I heard now there's a weekly group at Harvard Square that meets and protests solidarity. Like, it's a growing movement. Like, we would love to have more people involved.